This is the eLearning Podcast, episode number 24.
Before we built the learning management system, we actually built WordPress LMS systems custom for clients from scratch every time. And we did that enough times, and there was no real good solution in WordPress. That was the tech stack we would build on because we found it easy for our clients to drive after we handed it off. Then we decided to, scratch our own itch and build a tool that the WordPress community could use.
Welcome to the eLearning Podcast from lmspulse.com. My name's Stephen Laddick, and I'm the director at LMS Pulse. My guest for today's episode is Chris Badgett, who's the founder of LifterLMS. As many of you know, we love open source technology. And when it comes to e-learning, we think of Moodle, the most widely used learning information system on the planet. But believe it or not, there's another more omnipresent system on the internet with the potential of transforming the education of millions. And I bet you heard of it. It's called WordPress. After over a decade as a WordPress developer, Chris realized the potential of adding LMS superpowers to his clients' websites. LifterLMS provides WordPress sites a ton of goodies to create, manage, and promote courses to those who don't want to get into, specialized software, basically. In this exciting conversation, we talk about the fantabulous world of the educational entrepreneur. Perhaps it's not as big as others in the technology space, but one you should not dismiss quickly as an innovator or as an investor. We also talk about Chris's lessons in market validation and scalability without necessarily leaving your niche. For example, can you guess how much money the most successful online balloon animal teacher made last year? We tell you. We also talk about why it made sense for Chris to talk about a WordPress LMS and its possibilities as a ubiquitous platform that's really easy to use and scale. We also talk about how the benefits of open source in education can compound as long as we understand that making it talk in the language of any user is a necessary piece of the puzzle. And finally, we talk about why for many entrepreneurs in the education space, interoperability and a collective vision for an interconnected ecosystem is a legitimate path for growth because customers want more openness, not less. But before we get started, a quick word from our sponsors.
The eLearning Podcast is sponsored by the eLearning Success Summit. Learn from more than 40 experts how to teach, work, and learn online without being overwhelmed. Get your free ticket to the summit at elearningsuccesssummit.com. And lmspulse.com, your best source for news, information, and resources for e-learning professionals for more than 10 years. Get our free roundup of the week's top news at lmspulse.com.
Hi, Chris. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Stephen.
Chris, where do we find you sitting today?
I am in a small town called Belfast, Maine. It's on the coast of Maine.
Awesome. And it's, we're for posterity. We're recording this in sort of late August 2020. I'm guessing still sort of, summer is waning, kind of gorgeous, kind of looking at those cool, crisp temperatures. No?
Pretty much. It's textbook. No bugs. I just climbed a mountain yesterday with my wife and we were looking out over the ocean and it was crisp, clear, awesome, getting ready for the leaves to turn.
That is fantastic. Wonderful. You're with a company called LifterLMS. And before we go there, actually, no, tell me about LifterLMS. Tell me about who you are. Tell me about what LifterLMS is. And then I kind of want to hear what your COVID experience is with this particular platform right now. So,
got it. So LifterLMS is the learning management system for WordPress. So we help course creators create, launch, and scale high-value online training programs. And we have everybody from individual experts to K through 12 teachers, higher ed, companies leveraging LMS systems for internal training or education-based marketing or customer onboarding. Because WordPress is so flexible, Lifter is used in a lot of different ways. So that's what we do. The product is, as of this recording, almost 6 years old. Okay. I've been in WordPress myself for 12. Mm-hmm. Before we built the learning management system, we actually built WordPress LMS systems custom for clients from scratch every time. And we did that enough times, and there was no real good solution in WordPress. That was the tech stack we would build on because we found it easy for our clients to drive after we handed it off. Then we decided to, scratch our own itch and build a tool that the WordPress community could use for courses, membership sites, online schools, education portals, all of it.
Fantastic. So if I'm thinking of the pie that is your client base, is it mostly individual creators? Is it mostly people who, or maybe small organizations that they want to add an education component? And as opposed to how much of that pie is like, your standard higher education institution or a K through 12 or something like that?
So the fat middle, as you would call it, is what I call the VSB, the very small business, which is like an expert, a solo operator, even college professors and whatnot, but they are doing it more for themselves than the school IT department is deploying it. So similar to how WordPress is kind of democratized publishing, the way we look at it is we democratize learning in the digital classroom, which by nature of how adoption of these types of tools work, it's similar to Slack, the instant messaging app that's very popular. And
sure.
It's a bottom-up thing. It's where, like, let's say a professor or a IT department person, and then we see it start an organization. So it's very much a bottom-up grassroots kind of tool. So most of our people are individuals, but what we do see is we do see big companies and universities or academic departments or individual professors. They're going to bring it in, and then we see other people start adopting it.
Very cool. That's fantastic. I mean, there's nothing quite like word of mouth to, we all know that still, that's the number one sales tool, right? If somebody recommends it, it works the best. So take me through, just off the top of your head, are you seeing massive adoption rates because of, the last 3 or 4 months here where, everybody's been locked down in COVID. And so, oh my gosh, I need to get started with something I want, now's the time to do that. Has that been your reality? And are you kind of drinking from a fire hose at this stage or what?
We are drinking from a fire hose. It was really April where it really got off the chain. In mid-March, really it started, and then April things really started to take off. And there's a lot going on. It's sort of stabilized now at the end of the summer, but I'm anticipating, we're recording this at the end of August 2020, that as there's more volatility in the education sector and also in just any kind of in the job market in general, we're going to see more and more people turning to online LMS activity, but specifically with Lifter and WordPress, having it as a low cost, and we have a free plugin. There's WordPress has plugins. So
I'm glad you went there. That was my next question. Actually, it was like, so if I got a WordPress site, can I just download this and get going? And
yeah, that's pretty much it. It's sometimes let me think of how to phrase it. Like, we have a testimonial on our homepage who's like, there's this guy who's like, I was getting quotes from these LMS companies. It was going to be like $30,000. I'm doing that with your free plugin.
Wow.
And so sometimes that makes me feel a little crazy or whatever, but at the same time, part of our mission is to, our biggest mission is to lift up others through education, but we also are big believers in open source and WordPress. And we wanted to be a model of how to do freemium in WordPress, which means we give as much away as we possibly can for free, but then we do have a monetization layer when it comes to adding automated e-commerce checkout, a bunch of advanced features, and some integrations. But you can do a lot with the free version as well. And what we find if you look at the internet as a whole, somewhere around 35% of websites are powered by WordPress. So any one of those website owners around the world can go into the back end to their plugins where they add functionality. They type the word LMS, LifterLMS pops up, and they're off to the races. So if a business owner or a school already is using a website for marketing or for blogging or writing, it's a pretty easy path to just add more functionality with the LMS.
Do you find that that is the typical entry point, or are you seeing more people who are saying, all right, I have content, I've written a book, or I've got information, I'm an expert in something, and they're starting from scratch? Like, you know, maybe they had their business over here and they're starting from scratch, or are they taking their existing platform that they have, like for instance, lmspulse.com, right? So we have that. Would we then, or is the majority of people just sort of, hey, here's a new plugin, I'm now just gonna create a new section of our site, like?
As much as I try to like focus, the reality of WordPress and everything is people come from all over the place. And one framework I use to, you know, think about that is I think about 3 different types of users. There's the builder. So these are the IT professionals, the WordPress agencies and freelancers that build sites for clients. So they're a certain type of user. And then there's reasons why they like to work with us and our API and the ease of use and the all-in-one nature of it and everything. But then there's the DIY person, the expert, like you mentioned, who maybe has a WordPress or not. But we also have a ton of people where we're the first introduction. They don't even know what WordPress is. So we have free courses powered by our software, of course, to show a beginner who's never heard of WordPress, never used it, how to get a. And then we have what I call switchers. These are people who switch from hosted LMSs.
Hold on, Chris. We glitched right in your second one there. So tell me the second one is the DIY person. Go through that one again.
Yep. So then we have the DIY professional. So I call them builders. So they're building an online course or training-based membership site for themselves or their company, and they've never heard of WordPress. They're just doing it themselves for their first time, or they have some experience. And if we do introduce a lot of people for the first time into WordPress, they're just looking for an LMS. They find us, they like the pricing model, they like the features. It looks like it's going to get the job done. So we have free training powered by our software to show them how to use WordPress as a first-time WordPress user.
Awesome.
But then also super advanced people who've been in the industry a long time, that for them, they just plug it right in and they're moving fast. And then we have what I call switchers, which are people who have outgrown a hosted LMS for various reasons, whether that's functionality, a pricing model that doesn't work for them. And especially if you look in the current COVID economy, WordPress, I call it the new open source operating system of education, where you have, where there's all this financial pressure and variable costs to be more efficient, do more with less, where, WordPress LMS becomes an option that's affordable, that doesn't get into that variable cost, or some people call it a success tax, with more per user pricing, per enrollment, per student. All that's WordPress kind of flips the model. We flip the model with that. So, but to just summarize real quick, there's the builders, the do-it-yourselfers, the builders who are building for clients, the IT professionals, then the builders who build for themselves, and then the switchers who are, for various number of reasons, switching to WordPress or Lifter specifically.
Are you, let me ask you, I hope this isn't a curveball. Are you getting approached by, again, sort of a typical university that's got, 10, 20,000 students and, a catalog of, 2,000 classes and this kind of, like you're able to support that kind of ecosystem as well?
We do. What we find is those people are, usually it's an academic department that starts that is going to do it. And it's very different. And this is what I'm saying is, as a company, we focus on the expert industry, right?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Speaker, author, coach, subject matter expert. But, the next email or the next sales call, there's an IT person from the university or a project manager type person, and they want to talk, and then I need to talk to their lawyer, and then I need to talk to the accessibility team, all this stuff. And they're so happy. And of course they get the Cadillac of what we offer, but it's just, no matter if we try to serve this one person, there's just interest coming from all over.
That's fantastic. It's great to hear, because so often you hear about, especially in, you think about WordPress I mean, obviously some of the largest sites in the world are run by WordPress, right? Some of the large media companies and these kinds of things. So it's extremely scalable and expandable, but so often we think of it in the DIY space that, you know, it people's mindset sort of have that piece. So I wanted to see if that was dispelled or not.
I think it's still there, just in the sense that, I mean, there's perception issues. Like WordPress did start as a blogging tool, but over time it's become a platform for development, where companies like ours build solutions, tools for other people to use way beyond just content sites. But there is a perception of that. And also, I've heard a lot of people saying, like, I just can't believe this because of the pricing model. It's fine. It just is literally a shock to their way of thinking around SaaS pricing.
Sure.
And so that's going on. And also, I do hear from like people in different education sectors where the IT department's just going to make a choice, or we're just doing Google Classroom. That's it. Our students need to have single sign-on for everything. It's just like one thing. It's cool. But that just goes back, like when we do see ourselves inside major corporations, universities, well-known, fourth tier, whatever, there's always some individual driver of innovation that's kind of pulling it in or experimenting with it as an option. It's not coming from the administration who's figuring it out.
Where did you come from? I mean, you know, I guys, you're saying all the right words, but I mean, you're clearly versed in your clients and, you know, what the ed tech and the ed sector needs. Are you an educator as your background? And then like you're sort of a reformed educator who's not a technology provider, or a technology provider who's just passionate about education, or like tell us about yourself a little bit.
Yeah. So I'm not a teacher. I'm not a technologist. I can't write a single line of code. I have a technical co-founder.
Okay.
Before I do what I do now as an LMS software entrepreneur, I used to run sled dogs in Alaska. And I spent a lot of time. I managed a helicopter-supported sled dog tour business on a glacier in Alaska. You can't even get a cell signal where I live up there. And I helped my boss at that time train for the Iditarod sled dog race, if you've ever heard of that.
Yep, sure.
So I'm as low tech as they come. But what happened is, so I started a blog about leadership, which is a topic which is important to me because I'm really into high functioning teams. I had to lead people in remote areas and manage risk and all this stuff. So that's how I discovered WordPress in 2008. And over time, I just kind of fell in love with the tool. Like, okay, and I was just amazed at how me as a non-technical person could create a website that somebody anywhere in the world could see and access if they had internet. And then just slowly, it just kind of happened organically. People's business owners be like, hey, can you build me a website? And then over time, I became fascinated with this idea of just having an online business and location freedom, where you could live and work from everywhere, and you can make these information products, these courses, these membership sites that could not only make a great living for yourself, but also create some kind of positive change in the world. So my first courses are actually about, I partnered with some experts in the organic gardening and permaculture space. So right now I'm talking to you from my organic farm. This is a little cabin I have in my backyard where I'm standing right now of my house. And we have a little
LMS headquarters, apparently.
Exactly. So, I mean, I was the original, like, I was also a very early WordPress, trying to use WordPress to build courses and to build products I could sell. And that's where it evolved. And ultimately we grew an agency. I grew an agency up to like 18 people. And we started focusing on courses. It was membership sites, and we were getting clients all over the world. And that we used the client services to bootstrap the product. And I just fell in love with education and online business, and also, I just see education as the best marketing, the best way to provide opportunity for somebody. Like, for example, Cheryl Gillihan from Cause Labs is a agency that serves nonprofits. She deployed LifterLMS in Kenya in a way that helps women in these rural areas get trade job skills, which then gets them upward mobility in terms of some social stuff and what they can do. So she's empowering women with our tool in Africa.
Wow.
So that kind of stuff gets me really excited. I also use free courses as the number one driver of growth, email list growth for our business. So we have like a free LifterLMS Quick Start course that has 20,000 users in it. People try the product, they use it, they experience it. It's the best marketing you can ever do. So there's so many different ways to use an LMS. And then fundamentally, I have a background in anthropology and sociology. So I love people. I love social structures. Human beings are learning machines. Since we're born, we start copying faces and all this. Learning is everywhere. And so this niche and this industry, and then the digital transformation that's happening where everything has a digital option or is transitioning to digital, is just fascinating to me culturally. So I want to just help with all that.
Awesome, man. What a story. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And congratulations. It's always great to hear, and we even know it from, you think about Moodle, you think about D2L, you think about any of these, what we would call, the big four LMS. They were all started by one person or, a small group of people who had a passion and, just grew it from there. So, kudos to you. That's fantastic. You have this list of people. You say, sure, you've got a, your lost lead to get in is, hey, try out our free product and see if you like it. Where do people stop most of the time? They come in and they get scared because they're afraid they're not experts. They're like, oh crap, this is just too much work. I don't understand the technology, or like, where do you find people fail in going from I've got an idea to, becoming one of your long-term clients, basically?
That's a great question. I actually have a framework to address that, which is I call it the 5 hats problem. So, course creators or education entrepreneurs, as I call them, have to wear many hats. They have to be an expert at something. They have to be a community builder. They have to be a technologist. They have to be an instructional designer, and they have to be an entrepreneur. And within all these various hats, if you will, there's all these different skill sets that eventually you're going to need to learn or build a team to help you with, or work in a company inside of a company that fulfills all that so that the magic can come together. So if we're looking at just the software, the technology hat, the place where people fall down, if someone's new to WordPress, there is a learning curve, but it's really true for any software. But because WordPress is open and there's all these off-the-shelf free and paid tools you can do to extend the functionality of your website, sometimes people just get lost in the weeds of possibility. So that's
sure. It's overwhelming. Man, you go to WordPress.org and it's just like, I've been in the WordPress game as long as you have, and I've seen it evolve too. They've done a great job of starting to really focus things, but it's just still so easy. Like, which plugin do I choose and which theme? And oh my God. And yeah, sure.
It's fascinating because as a company, and I can resonate with the problem because I'm like a mini version of it with Lifter, is you have a tool that like some novice can use, like to spin up a website for their business or start blogging about their favorite topic, or like an advanced user like us can build like a custom application on top of and send it out. So like, how do you build something that's simultaneously great for the novice and the power user? There's a philosophy in development that if you take care of the ends, the middle will take care of itself. And I think that's actually true. The longer I'm in the game, I'm like, how can that be true? But based on my experience, if you think about the people who are going to be the most challenged, but they're still a fit for your software, and then the people who are, the most ace at it are going to want all the pro stuff and the API and everything else, the middle does take care of itself. So,
that's awesome. That is so fantastic. Yeah. What's the number 1 or 2 questions that people ask after they're sold? They get in, they put up the free plugin, they're humming along, they're starting, like, where do people fail, kind of after they're in, and what are the common things that you would say, turn left or right or do this to kind of overcome those first milestones?
Well, there's several things. The top things that come to mind are a lot of people should, in my opinion, just work with a pro to get it up. If they have the budget to like get somebody to help and kind of fulfill that tech hat a little bit so they can move on
Well,
to
then,
like,
okay, so people get scared when you say when you have a budget, right?
yeah.
So is a budget, is that $100? Is that $1,000? Is that $5,000? I mean, I know what my answer would be, but what do you think?
I mean, through the course of my career as a WordPress professional, I've built sites from $200 to $80,000. So there's a wide range. But yeah, I mean, I got it to a point where I created a productized service so that anybody could come if they had some training content together, and we had these packages. There was a $2,000, a $4,000, a $5,000, and $10,000 option. People bought all the options. It did not take long to fulfill them, but it was we had productized it. That's a whole other conversation in terms of productizing services.
And I'm thinking about Carl or Jane or Zainab, whoever who's just showed up there. They're truly an expert. They've overcome the fear of starting this. And you say, hey, look, maybe you should get a tech team to just get this up and running and do it because you should just stay the content expert. I mean, in my mind, I mean, it's, that's $1,000. That's a $1,000, $2,000 budget to like really create something that hums and looks nice, and then you can plug your stuff in. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that's a good, there's the low, the middle, and the high end of the market. So the low end of the market is going to be like $500 to $5,000 for a speaker coach, it is. And then the middle of the market, we're looking at, kind of in that $15,000 to $30,000 range. And at the high end, $80K and up or $100K and up. And this is where like, you're doing a really big implementation and all these integrations and all this.
Nice. Well, so take me there. So my original question was, where are those big milestones that people, come together? And you were saying, maybe you want to look at getting a tech person. If I'm
the other thing, there's others.
Go ahead. Sorry.
The other things would be, getting people, it happened to me. I fell in love with WordPress. I didn't realize it at the time, but sometimes people just go into this rabbit hole and they end up in just tech forever. So if it's an expert speaker, author, coach, whoever, we have tools, our tools at e-commerce solution as well. I definitely recommend pre-selling to get customers in. You can create a course, create the outline, put a future start date, sell it today. Like you could build that in a matter of an hour with Lifter. And so what I recommend doing is people get some people in to make sure before they go into what I call the course creation cave and just start creating their life's work for what they think is going to be a month. I've seen people be in that cave for a year, multiple years, and they never actually ship anything.
Right.
But when you get the validation from the market, some pre-orders, some early adopters, that's very fulfilling. It gives you some signal that you're heading in the right direction. And also it opens up that feedback loop so that you can even create the content live with them and record it.
And that's what we found in today's world, right? Yeah. Like perfection it's a never-ending search, right? It's really, we're all on the journey. Even if you feel like that 2 + 2 = 4, there's still going to be somebody who's got feedback to make that 4 a little more crisp or a little more, a little straighter, or it's a different font or, whatever. And yeah, that we've really found that advice is helpful as well, is that don't look for perfection. Like get your stuff out there. As Ed Dale said a long time ago, always be shipping, right?
There you go. Yeah.
Right. Always be shipping. So along with the fails, what are some of your biggest successes? Are you able to name names or anything like that about people who are using LifterLMS right now, about who just are killing it?
Well, you mentioned Ed Dale, who's an old school internet marketer guy.
Oh my God, yeah, I'm glad you know who he is, man. He's that takes me way back.
So I just found out the other day that what kind of the grandfather of a lot of these folks, including Tony Robbins, is Jay Abraham, and he's using LifterLMS in his thing, which
Oh,
is
wow.
really cool.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
The largest WordPress education site called WP101 is powered by Lifter. What else? I heard so we help promote and refer people to agencies that do sites, like, because that's a big question we get is like, hey, this is cool, I love it, perfect solution, do you know anybody who can build it for me? So we built this whole expert program, and there's a particular person on there who has who does more enterprise stuff, and I've heard LifterLMS has now ended up inside of Delta Airlines. Who else was it? There was on the university front, there was a lot of activity in Boston University.
Wow.
There was a university in Arizona that was using it. But really, there's a lot of like people who aren't known, like non-recognizable logos, who have done great things. I'm thinking of Ziv Raviv, who is an Israeli man who teaches this. Get this. Balloon artists, people who tie animal balloons, right?
I can just see the step-by-step now on as it breaks down. It's like, all right, now blow up the balloon. Now twist measure 3 inches down and twist, and that's going to be the nose.
Nobody knows who Ziv is. I know who Ziv is. He's awesome, but he's not a worldwide brand. But in 2019, in a niche a total addressable market of only 1,000 people worldwide. There's like 5,000 of these people worldwide, and only 1,000 of them are like really professional at it, like container things. He made $277,000 in 2019 with his training platform for balloon artists.
Wow.
Now anytime somebody says like, oh, it's a small niche, I think about Ziv, 1,000 people around the whole world. And, even during the pandemic, as that spooled up, his market, he uses Lifter as a full membership solution too. So it's a membership site that has lots of courses and webinars and all these different other components. But his market, people aren't hiring people to come to parties during the pandemic. So he was, as an entrepreneur, this is why I call these people education entrepreneurs, he pivoted everything to teach people how to deliver the same kind of experiences online through Zoom and this kind of stuff, like how to adapt with the times, and made even more money. And I was like, this guy, so Ziv is one of my heroes. He's on our case studies page or whatever, but I can't wait to run into him again and find out what he's done next.
Super cool. Yeah. I personally, I could sit here and talk to you for the next 2 hours. You're my kind of people. My final question that I'm asking so many people is, here we are, August 2020. What do you see a year from now? What are you putting into Lifter to, address like future needs, or what are your future features that people are asking for? Like what's your roadmap? What do you see?
So I think in the future, I do see more just extended virtual education is just going to be a thing. And I don't think the world's just going to go exactly back how it was before. I'm not one of these guys who says that everything needs to go digital. I love in-person training too. Blended learning, awesome. I think that's the best solution, is a little bit of everything. But I also believe in making things more accessible through web technology and that kind of stuff. But so I think adoption is going to increase. Every year, WordPress adoption is disrupting the market in terms of open source, freemium, lower barrier to entry. All that is happening, and I think that's going to continue to accelerate. We do see more businesses doing a hybrid model. So, for example, companies like gyms are using LifterLMS to deliver fitness training, where they'll do like a Zoom class and put it in the LMS, and then they're figuring out. I guess what I'm saying is I'm seeing online education going mainstream. It's been around for a while, but it's really, everybody knows what Zoom is now. Everybody is getting familiar with being online to do stuff where they maybe, if they had the choice, wouldn't or whatever. So it's really going mainstream. So I see more of that. I think we're going to see more and more people with, as the economy evolves, people reinventing their careers. And I think one of my things with people is I see all this opportunity in everybody I meet. Like, everybody's got all these gifts, and that's a combination of skills, life experience, and passion. And within that, there's training opportunities to share that digitally with other people. So this is the whole expert industry thing. I think that whole market is just going to continue to grow. And especially as people are, if certain careers or whatever are disrupted, there's, I think, digital training and consulting and all this stuff is just going to continue to grow. For Lifter specifically, we are doing a lot of expansion in our API, which is just, we're making it easy for other developers, mobile application builders, even our own development team to accelerate development and allow an ecosystem of other tools to innovate with us. So we're just going to see more and more of that. But a lot of our features, we're really obsessed with this problem of the beginner and the advanced user. So we're developing on the ends. For the beginning people, we want to make it even easier to onboard. So we're doing a lot of features around, hey, this thing is so powerful, so flexible.
Chris, this has been a wonderful conversation. I can't thank you enough for being on the show, and I wish you all the luck.
Yeah, appreciate it, Stephen.
Thanks again for tuning into today's episode of the eLearning Podcast. If you like what you've learned today in this episode, I encourage you to either follow us or subscribe to us on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube. And please do share this episode with one or two of your colleagues or friends. Also, I just want to remind you that you can level up your online learning game with all of the information that's available at the eLearning Success Summit. You can get your free ticket at elearningsuccesssummit.com. And finally, you can also stay up to date on everything that's important, all the news and the resources for e-learning professionals at lmspulse.com. Get our free newsletter by just going to lmspulse.com today. Thanks again.